continue with our recasting of the gospel as a story of Jesus set in our current context of the United States. Not long after Joshua had preached in Saturn and escaped the rioting crowd converging on him, he and his followers were at a town in Pedon on a Sunday. He was teaching at a local church. Among those present was a man acting very erratically, pushing the boundaries of sanity, raging in a fit, and seemingly lost to reality. Many considered something wrong with him spiritually, being influenced and controlled by evil spirits. He approached Joshua, interrupting the proceedings, crying out, "Leave us alone. What are you trying to do with us here, Joshua of Saturn? Are you here to destroy us all? I know who you are. You are Yah's Holy One." Joshua turned to the man, saying, "Be quiet," and release him. The man suddenly fell down as though having a seizure. He convulsed a couple of times and immediately came to his senses, having suffered no harm nor any apparent effects from the seizure. He got back to his feet and with no need that any assist him, and quietly took a seat, obviously confused but composed and in his right mind. The congregation did not know what to make of this. They began murmuring and buzzing with comments and questions over what they had just seen and heard. It made no sense to them. Many who had not believed in the existence of demons or evil spirits had a sudden change of heart. Others claimed they had witnessed a miracle of psychiatric healing. Others were simply at a loss to explain what they had witnessed. The consensus questions, however, were, what did we just see? How can someone simply utter such a command and it be fulfilled? This is some kind of powerful speech we have never experienced. How does one control whatever was afflicting that man as we just saw? Soon the whole town was abuzz over what had just occurred. The tale was told at dinner tables, in bars, at clubs, and around water coolers at work. Calls were made and reporters came around to investigate and report on what had just happened, fully excited about a sensational story and sorting through all the different takes on the event. Joshua may not have wanted publicity on everything he was doing and saying, but this story turned the attention of all of Pedon toward him. Soon the talking heads were giving their competing takes on something no one understood. Another Sunday, Joshua was passing by some grain fields with his retinue, and some of them gleaned grain from the edges of the fields. They rubbed the grain in their palms to loosen the husks, blowing off the chaff and eating the grain. There were some Pentecostals watching, some of those very strict, legalistic in particular, about observing details of biblical commandments and holding fast to their strict King James Version ideas. They approached Yahweh saying, "Look, some of your closest followers are breaking the Sabbath laws by doing work, when they should not be doing so on a Sunday. You are allowing them to make a mockery of God and God's laws. Joshua responded, "Oh, I see what they are doing. Do you hear yourselves? There is more in the Bible than the little regulations you like to blow out of proportion with your lack of understanding. In your reading of the scriptures, have you not seen what Washington did when he and those who were with him were hungry and escaping Cornwallis? He entered the temple overseen by Spurgeon and took the consecrated communion bread for himself and his band of warriors for their rations. Now, any leftover consecrated bread is only to be eaten by the priests and by their families. Yet Spurgeon gave it freely to Washington and his comrades in arms because of their need. Can you really be unaware that the priests serving in the temple must regularly break the Sabbath code in order to fulfill their duties? That is of God's design, and there is nothing to condemn. Something much greater than even the temple is in your midst, but you cannot see it. You need to go back and study what it means when the scripture quotes Yah as saying, "I desire mercy far above sacrifice." If you understood those words and their implications, you would not have condemned the guiltless so readily. The children of men are lords of the Sabbath, for whom it was creating as a blessing. The Sabbath does not rule humanity. Joshua arrived at the church of some of those same Pentecostals to teach on the following Sunday. In the midst of the congregation was a man whose right hand was grossly misshapen and withered up, virtually unusable, and more hindrance than help. Now, there were some Bible thumpers in the assembled congregation as well. Together they were watching closely to see if and how Joshua would respond to the presence and affliction of this man. They hoped to find something over which they might accuse, ridicule, and discredit him. Well aware of what they hoped to do and heading off the trap being set for him, Joshua addressed the elephant in the room heads on. He called the man with the withered hand forward to stand before the congregation. Then he asked them all, "Tell me, is it lawful and right to do good or to do harm on Sunday? Is it lawful to save or destroy a life because it is or is not a Sunday? Is God's will different on a Sunday than on any other day of the week? Does morality shift according to the position of the sun and the day on your calendar?" He continued, "Suppose one of you has but a single lamb and it falls into a hole on a Sunday morning. Do you leave it crying in distress until the next day before you rescue it? Do you wait to cleanse and bind its wounds until the new day has begun? You would condemn anyone doing such as hard-hearted and unworthy to care for any animal whatsoever. No, you lift it out of its distress. Tend to it, comfort it, and ensure its safety before going on with your Sunday activities and worship? Is a human life not worth at least as much as that of a lamb or a dog? So tell me then, is doing good on Sunday any different from doing good any other day of the week? Congregation was silent, listening to and watching Joshua, but unwilling to respond in any way. Joshua looked around at them intently, stretching the silence they refused to break. He became irritated with them and their stubborn attachment to their traditions, their unwillingness to think, process, and examine themselves and their received norms. He turned to the man he had called forward, saying to him, "Stretch out your arm." The man stretched out his arm, and to everyone's amazement, the flesh, bones, and skin seemed to grow right before them into a fully formed and functional limb. Those Pentecostals and Bible thumpers left the room and immediately started strategizing, finding common cause with some globalists as well. These erstwhile enemies joined forces, seeking to silence Joshua once and for all. Joshua left that place, and crowds followed him, begging him to heal them, which he did. He told them to keep it quiet, but word spread anyway. Isaiah had written about this. "Behold, my choice servant, my pride and joy. On him lies my voice, speaking justice to the nations. He will neither shout nor cajole nor yell in the streets. He will protect the vulnerable and fan life's sparks to flame until what is right rises in victory. He will be the hope of all nations." Joshua's human opposition could not recognize him the way the evil spirits could. They were too ensnared by the certainty of their illusions.